In the early 1980s, when Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan were first working together to figure out how they could change their countries and potentially change the world, my boss at the Pentagon, Cap Weinberger, who was Secretary of Defense, was invited by the Oxford Union to come and debate a proposition. The proposition was that the United States and the Soviet Union were morally equivalent. I had gone to Oxford, I debated at the Oxford Union, so my job was to train Weinberger and get him up to snuff for a very different kind of debate. The Oxford Union debate is rude and it's obnoxious and it's just like it is in Prime Minister's Question Time. So Weinberger was prepared. Margaret Thatcher called him and said, don't do it, you're going to go, the world is watching, Europe is going to watch, you're going to lose this debate, they're all communists at Oxford, and they're all going to vote against you. The European leaders all got wind of it, and they said more or less the same thing. They called President Reagan and said, don't let your Secretary of Defense go there, he's going to get creamed. Weinberger wanted to go. So we sat there in the Oxford Union, which is a room about this size. It's cold, it was in the middle of the winter, there's no heat in the room, and there were stone seats. Weinberger stood up into this group of probably socialists, if not a lot of them were communists, students, and he gave an impassioned plea for common values. And he said that he had been a veteran of World War II, and he had fought in that war, and he had fellow Brits who had fought alongside him. He knew people who never came back from that war. And he said that the experiment of free speech and free and individual choices, whether it's what kind of religion you practice or what kind of economic policies you want to practice, he said that was the heart of what brought our two countries together. At the end of that night, that cold, freezing night, the majority of those students listened to Weinberger, thought long and hard about the traditions that bound our two countries, and they walked out and gave him a resounding victory. Weinberger didn't know until Margaret Thatcher called him in the middle of the night and said, you know you won, didn't you? That was the first sign that the relationship between the United States and the Great Britain was going to turn around the world. We turned around our economies, we turned down our relationship, and we ultimately won the Cold War without firing a shot. When I look at what the Brits are going to do on June 23rd, I don't look at that as an exit from anything. I think it's a rejoining of our two great countries. With that.